Despite ceasefire in place, US-Israeli forces killed Irgc's Alireza Tangsiri in Bandar Abbas. He was the commander of Iran's naval forces and the man behind the defense of the Strait of Hormuz. Alireza Tangsiri was one of the most powerful and hardline military figures in Iran's naval command structure. As the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy since 2018, he oversaw Iran's asymmetric maritime strategy in the Persian Gulf, focusing on fast attack craft, swarm tactics, and coastal defense systems designed to counter larger naval forces. He played a central role in shaping Iran's posture in the Strait of Hormuz, repeatedly warning that Tehran could disrupt or shut down the critical oil passage if provoked. In recent weeks, his rhetoric had intensified with direct threats aimed at the United States assets and regional infrastructure as tensions escalated. Now, to the world's most sensitive oil flashpoint is now entering a dangerous new phase. Kharg Island, which handles the vast majority of Iran's oil exports, is being rapidly transformed into a fortified military zone. Iran is reinforcing defenses, deploying weapons, and preparing for the possibility of a direct confrontation. At the same time, the United States is positioning forces in the region, moving marines and naval assets closer to the Gulf. This is active preparation on both sides with consequences that go far beyond the region. Iran is building a layered defense around Kharg Island designed to make any attack extremely costly. Military inputs indicate deployment of man-portable air defense systems across the island, along with extensive mining of coastal areas. Additional forces have been moved in, and monitoring of surrounding waters has increased. The idea is to create a defensive shield that can disrupt air operations and block any landing attempt before it gains momentum. Let me tell you, Americans have deployed soldiers from the Immediate Response Force, which has the mandate to deploy soldiers within 18 hours at any point of time, at any place on the globe. 82nd Marine Expeditionary Division 2 has been deployed. USS Boxer, USS Tripoli 2 have been deployed by the American Army, which can actually lead a boots on the ground operation wherever it wants. The weapons being deployed on Kharg Island are designed to deny access and inflict immediate damage. That's from the other side. Manpads are shoulder-fired missiles capable of targeting low-flying aircrafts and helicopters with high accuracy. Their mobility and short-range effectiveness make them difficult to counter in a confined battlefield. Any aircraft attempting insertion or close air support would be exposed within seconds. Alongside this, coastal waters and entry points are being seeded with anti-personnel and anti-armor mines. The military buildup is being matched by an equally sharp escalation in rhetoric. Donald Trump, in his own flair, I would say in his own style, has repeatedly asserted that Iran has been weakened and is in no position and no longer in a position to sustain conflict. On the other side, Iranian leadership is issuing direct warnings, stating that any attempt to target their territory will invite a wide and forceful response, and Americans have been told by the Iranian media that Iran thinks that Trump and Trump's administration is negotiating with itself, and they don't want to negotiate with Trump. And Trump on the other side is saying that they will miss the bus. And if they miss the bus, something terrible can happen. Let's listen in to America's President Donald Trump.
I tell you, we're winning so big, nobody's ever seen anything like we're doing in the Middle East with Iran. And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it. because they figure they'll be killed by their own people. They're also afraid they'll be killed by us. There's never been a head of a country that wanted that job less than being the head of Iran. I don't want it. We listen to some of the things they say. We hear them very clearly. They say, I don't want it. We'd like to make you the next supreme leader. No, thank you. I don't want it.
Kharg Island is central to Iran's economic survival. A majority of Iran's oil exports pass through this single hub, making it the backbone of the country's revenue system. Any disruption here would directly impact Iran's ability to sustain its economy. Global oil markets are tightly linked to supply flows from the Gulf, and any instability around Kharg has the potential to drive price spikes and create ripple effect worldwide. If USA wants peace, the question is, why did they knock off Iran's naval commander? How strong is the possibility of boots on ground on Kharg Island? How serious is USA about its 15-point peace plan? Does US even have an exit strategy? People are talking about what is acceptable to USA, but what will be acceptable to Iran? And these are the questions I'm going to take to my panelists. On this issue, I'm joined by Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, former General Officer Commanding in Chief, ATRAC. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. I'll also be joined by Major General G.G. Dwivedi, former Assistant Chief Integrated Staff. Thank you so much, sir. Let me straight away go to General Shukla. So my question is, if USA wants peace, they have sent the 15-point program, then why did they eliminate the naval commander, Alireza Tangsiri?
They eliminate Ayatollah Khomeini. So the decapitation strikes are a part and parcel of the American doctrine. But let's examine what is working and what is not. So, the way I look at it is that while America is winning the war of destruction, I mean, all those claims of 92% of the Iranian Navy being destroyed, 66% of the missiles, launchers, etc. being destroyed. Iranian response by way of the war of disruption has been equally successful. They've set this whole 3,000-kilometer arc of the Gulf countries, its economies, its data centers, the airports, everything is on fire. And more importantly, I think Iran has thrown a gauntlet to the heart of American statecraft and power, which is what? They are telling them that, America has these 800 bases, 11 aircraft carriers to keep freedom of navigation going, to keep oil and commerce going. And they are saying that we own the Hormuz. You may own the airwaves, but we own the Hormuz Strait. And that is where the problem is. I was reading somewhere that, America accounts for 16% of global oil supplies. Iran accounts for 20% of global oil supplies through the Hormuz. And I'm told that already some $2 billion of the toll tax that they have been taking has been deposited in Chinese banks. So the military hegemon is being confronted by an oil hegemon. The second point I'd like to make it, how does it go from here?
Yes.
I think that Trump all along was just calming the markets. So this 5-day ceasefire was to calm the markets till he assembled his forces. The forces that you pointed out to, the two Marine Expeditionary Units, Tripoli and Boxer, and the 82nd Airborne. And once they are in place by Friday, Saturday, or whatever, hostilities are going to resume. The third point I'd like to make is this, that both Trump and Netanyahu are outliers in a very conventional status quoist world. So they are, depending on the military advice, they will take the risks no matter what the consequences. And in doing so is the actual problem. Is Trump walking into an escalation trap? You take Iraqi freedom, the Iraq war. Baghdad had fallen in 3 weeks. And then they got into a decade-long quagmire.
Yes.
So here all the scintillating stuff from the air has gone off very well. But now is the point. This time when they commit boots on ground through the seas, Kharg Island or the other options, what will happen perhaps is this. You know, when your tactical successes do not turn into strategic outcomes. For example, all the tactical successes, the IRGC by and large is in place. You still haven't got hold of the 440 kgs highly enriched uranium. When the tactical successes do not convert into strategic effects, you double down on the tactical successes, and that is what bogs you down into a wider escalation trap. So I think that is how things are poised at this time. General Dwivedi was my instructor in the Indian Military Academy. He wouldn't recall. So I'll wait for wiser counsel to flow.
Okay, thank you. General Dwivedi, it is okay to put boots on the ground. Do you think that the Americans will they be able to hold the ground in Kharg Island or the islands around? I mean, so they have the power to reach anywhere, but then the sort of military deployment in a federated system which the Iranians have done, even Americans could not anticipate that, sir.
Thank you for having me on your program. Well, I'll take off from where General Raj Shukla has left. You see, before I come to your question, it's very important to comprehend as to what are the war aims, what are the opponent's strategies, how the war has panned out, and where it is today, before we come to the next phase of deploying special forces. And I have served in special forces, so I can give you a little bit of personal insight. Well, the war aims, to start with, are very clear. Whether to go to war, that's a political decision that can be debated. But I think when the war aims were stated, they're very clear. Basically to defend the Iranian capability, military capability, both in the terms of nuclear or the missile capability. Then, decapitate their leadership, and ensure that they are weakened, not to strengthen or not to support their militias. And finally, naval was one of the targets. Now, to that extent, as General Shukla has said, that 70 to 80%, well, those figures can be debated, but there have been significant degradation of the capability of the Iranian military forces. The second point is that decapitation has taken place, but the regime is still intact. And the IRGC, the regime, has still the fight left. Now, how did the strategies play out? Well, the American strategy is simple and straight: to use the overwhelming force to bring the opponent on the knees. But here, the Iranians had a different strategy, that is isometric warfare. And remember, in the military parlance or military history, no conventional army has ever won against the isometric forces. So therefore, this had to pan out in this particular manner. And today, when you are on the battlefield, before you come to the negotiation table, you have to have a very strong hand. And Iranians have a strong hand. They have weaponized the Strait of Hormuz. They are able to hit still, with a water 20-30% capability left, they are able to hit targets which cause high degree of pain, economic and otherwise psychological, on the Gulf countries, and they expanded the ambit of the battlefield. And thirdly, the militias. Hezbollah is taking a heavy toll of the Israelis, and they have been there since 1982. If we go back in 2006, the Hezbollah had a 34-day standoff against the Israelis, and they are very active since 7th October 2023. So the point I'm trying to make is, at this time, the choices that are with President Trump and with the Iranians. First and foremost, no infantryman or no ground forces have ever been evicted by the air power. And I am an infantryman to that extent. So therefore, to get the man out of the foxhole, you have to deploy the forces on the ground. Now, if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't open, the President Trump is under tremendous pressure, because there's a global implication. So this has now become very incumbent on him, either to negotiate and get the Hormuz open, or to deploy the forces and use kinetic force. So that is one point where we stand today. Whether the forces will be deployed or not, again, it's a matter of how much risk you want to take. Because in such I would say situation where the Iranians are well prepared. So when you deploy the forces, they will fight it out. And initially, when you deploy the forces, it will be possibly a combined operation, air operation, because 82 Airborne Division has already deployed one brigade, and two of the amphibious task forces, Tripoli and Boxer, already.
To you, do you still think that those resentment will play against the government of the day, or will it unite them with the government of the day, sir?
Sajadpur, the very famous Iranian analyst, tells us that when the revolution began, 80% of the people were with the Ayatollahs and 20 were against. Perhaps today that figure is 30-70. What should worry the Iranians is that not only is the support dwindling, it is getting unpopular, but it is so deeply penetrated. I mean, every commander gets knocked off. It cannot happen without a deep penetration. Having said that, most observers are of the view that the IRGC base is pretty strong. It is still 20-25 million. And to that is gathering, adding another 5 to 10 million because of this rallying around the flag effect. So I think it is pretty substantial. And in any case, till now, there are no signs of defection or disaggregation, none at all. The protests haven't turned into any flame. So that is, that is how things appear to me. And the IRGC is not only a military force, it is ideological, it has strong economic moorings, and everything of its existence is at stake. If I may make just one point about these operations, Kharg is far too deep into the strait. What also needs to get cleared is the islands around the mouth of the strait, which is Quech, Hormuz, Abu Musa, and all those islands. Now the forces that the Americans have are the two MEUs. They've got 82nd Airborne, as General Dwivedi was saying, about 1,000 troops from there. And I'm told what has not been put in the public eye is that a lot of these Team 6, Delta Force, Rangers, Green Berets, etc. are moving in. And I'd like to make one more point. If you take the professional advice that Mr. Trump is getting, Dan Kane is an F-16 pilot. Hexeth is from the National Guard, paramilitary. Admiral Cooper is from the Navy. A lot of SF people. Now, they are very professional. But you know what General Dwivedi was pointing out, when it comes to the rough and tumble of everyday life, the grind, the infantryman's fight, that is where the Americans always get into trouble. Stanley McChrystal points out that the Americans are very good at fighting from 20,000 feet. But when you get to 6 feet, when the adversary is also 6 feet, that is where you get into trouble. And here the challenge is what? The ground troops, the man pads, the fast attack craft, drone boats, the T-3 mines, drifting mines, limpet mines. And what are the options, if I may just take a minute before the
Absolutely.
MEU? Either it crosses into the strait, which is not going to be easy, and does an amphibious assault, or it does a standoff aerial assault from these 500 miles, which is a combination of, 3 waves of special forces, infantry, led by F-35s. Now, all that from the time you launch till you land, you are greatly vulnerable. And I wonder if President Trump is seized of that. So many operations in the past have gone wrong there. No political change has taken place from the air. It has always been on ground. And there, when the body bags start coming in, is Mr. Trump prepared to, withstand the political, shall we say, effects when the midterm or whatever the elections are just about 6 months away? It is that when you have casualties, blood and gore. Is Mr. Trump seized of that, and what is the political advice that he's getting? Because he's a gambler, but the odds are significantly against such kind of operations. And that is exactly the escalation trap which the Americans have got into. So here on, it is a matter of sharp political judgment. And as General Dwivedi was saying, these are all strategies. It all depends now how those platoons, squadrons and companies fight it on ground. So I think that is where it is so critically poised.
General Dwivedi, American foreign power, military power in last 100 years were projected through its mighty aircraft carrier. The one is out of action is in Crete, the Gerald Ford, and there is no mention of USS Abraham Lincoln, and the Iranians today have claimed that they indeed fired missiles at that aircraft carrier. And today they have also confirmed that they did attack the Israeli nuclear facility. So, do you think that America underestimated the Iranian response?
Possibly, because it's very difficult to, gauge the human mind. You can map out or you can quantify the capability of the machines, but the capability of a man is very difficult to quantify or even envisage. So to that extent, I think possibly, American might have underestimated the fighting capability of the Iranians. The second point is, that when you going for such operations, as General Shukla also was mentioning, and I was making a point, that ultimately it's the man who decides the defeat or victory on the ground, because you have never won a war either from the air or from the amphibious operation. Ultimately, it has to come to the close quarter battle. And when you fight close quarter battle, then you are equally matched. And therefore, you have to get a punch, as Mike Tyson said, that you come to the other guy's plan when you get punched on the nose and see the red fluid coming out. So that is the kind of situation that will develop. Now, two important points which I wish to make. See, special operations are very complicated and they're very high risk because there are so many imponderables that can go wrong. And the second issue is how determined are the Americans to get the guys, of whether Kharg Island or Moose Island out, because, fighting with the what I will say, that standoff fighting is one, but the close quarter battle is another. So therefore, I think that it has to be very, very calculated, very calibrated decision. But before the special forces are launched, there are two advantages are with the Americans. Firstly, they have complete air domination, and secondly, they have very high degree of amphibious capability. And the point you had raised about the Iranian capability to take on or engage or at least keep the aircraft carrier well away into the high seas. Well, Iranians had a good navy. They had about 90 to 100 naval vessels. They have developed a navy with the kind courtesy of Chinese and North Koreans. In fact, I was defense station China and North Korea, so have some bit of insight as to how they helped out the Iranians. So therefore, they had these missiles, what we call it the shore-based anti-ship missile, which can take on targets, very accurately at from 1,500, even 2,000 kilometers. The Chinese today, Chinese have today the DF-25, that is known as bomb killers. So they had given certain amount of missile capability. That's why the aircraft carriers are actually on this standoff distance. But the point is that they have not been able to cause a damage because the aircraft carriers have a shield around them. Their own shield, they have the number of warships that protect them. So it's very difficult to get a aircraft carrier. But as long as I think Iranians even got a closer miss or a closer hit, still it's very much to the credit. But yes, I'm sure the aircraft carriers group is quite aware that Iranians do have the capability to fire off the onshore missile, and therefore they will only not risk themselves and keep a standoff distance. Kartik.
Thank you both of you. I've really run short of time. I wish I would have had the time to ask both of you. Even the Israelis didn't launch underground tunnel operations in Gaza, which has been very well mapped by them through AI and other technologies. And there have been a number of articles in the foreign publications saying, and the PDEX saying that, it's a cakewalk, we can go inside and take out the fissile material without talking about any infantry or, or other logistical support, But that conversation for other time. Thank you both of you gentlemen for joining me.